you're really good at pitching. If there's something a few features of your career, one is kind of the collaboration side of things, which, it's exuded in most of the projects you've done, and that's the way you photograph. The other thing that really comes across to me is the way you can get sponsors, work with big corporations to provide, accessibility and finances for certain big projects. And clearly you have this way of connecting with, big corporations and CEOs of companies and big kind of Fortune 500 companies who are able to sponsor things. And in this case, streamers and production companies and other people like that. What is the secret? For lowly individual photographers like myself, many of our audience, and we want to kind of pitch. We want to pitch a project to a brand or to a government institution. Give us some insights. Like what is the success?
Okay, so a couple of things. One is if you actually get 20 minutes of a CEO's time, don't ask for $50,000 because you just wasted his or her time. I mean, you kind of want to walk in with a really big idea. The problem is if you with anybody else other than the CEO, they're listening to your pitch saying, is this good for my career or bad? They're not hearing, is this good for my company or not? The first thing they're thinking is, if I say yes to this, am I going to be praised or punished or lose my job or be promoted? Where if you're talking to the CEO, he or she could basically, whatever the amount of money that you're asking for is kind of pocket change for them. It's a couple of $1 million. And so I just find if you walk in with a really big idea and you get their imagination going, even if they say no, they won't forget the meeting. And I don't mean to make it sound easy. I mean, for everyone that says yes, I probably talk to 30 people that say no, but and I also am kind of relentless. I mean, I'm not obnoxious, but I'm persistent. The other thing is, John Sculley told me this. John used to be the CEO of Apple, and I knew him a long time ago. He's a friend, but he was incredibly supportive of our projects in the early years. We used to, in fact, when I didn't have very much money to pay the photographers, I went to John and I said, can I pay the photographers with Macintoshes instead of cash? I have $1,000 to pay a photographer, but I'd like to give them a Mac, a printer, and a ton of software. So give them like a $3,000 package. So we actually got the first Macs into Time, Life, Newsweek, National Geographic, all came in through the back door. We gave almost 1,000 Macs away. We didn't give them away, but we used them as payment, not only to the photographers, but all the editors, all the picture editors. And people said, well, I'm a photographer. What would I do with a computer at the beginning? And then the moment they had it, it was like, wow, because they all thought they were going to turn around and sell it and just make $2,000, right? Because it was a $3,000 package. But the moment they had it, they all started saying, oh, I can use this to write letters. And there were so many, this is way before you can even transmit photographs. Now it's extraordinary. But John told me something really interesting. He said, if you ever want to reach a CEO, the only day of the week that you can penetrate their force field is 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And I said, what do you mean? He said, it's the only day of the week that most CEOs will still read their own emails because their secretaries, their assistants, their handlers, their screeners don't work on Sundays usually. I don't know if this is still true, but I found when I want to reach out to somebody now with LinkedIn, it's fantastic. I'd say I have about an 80% hit rate if I reach out to somebody on a Sunday morning. I told John, I said that was the best advice anybody ever gave me because they can't help but check their email. And then of course, writing an email is also an art form, which you have to keep relearning all the time because like if you put too much in the email, they just tune out. So you have to say enough to make them want to actually hear more.
And in the attention economy, we have to capture their attention immediately, right?
It's so hard, I know. And also people say, well, why would I want to do a book? Books are so old fashioned. It's so, it's like that's like, who's going to look at a book? And I say, okay, who's going to find a website from 2 years ago? These books are still sitting. We did a book called One Digital Day where we showed the impact of the microprocessor, and Intel sponsored it. And I said, we're going to put your competition in here. It's about the impact of the microprocessor, not about Intel's impact. And they gave 150,000 copies of the book away to their employees, to CEOs, to world leaders. And we did that book 20 years ago and it's still sitting. When I go to Intel, it's still sitting in the waiting rooms. So I said, yes, it's old fashioned, but it's also physical. And, so much of our lives now are digital. And something that sits in your coffee table is, amazing. I'll tell you one more story, which is related to this. I gave a talk at a high school in San Francisco, again, 25 years ago. And this kid came up to me with a box of yellow, a Kodak box of prints. And it reminded me so much of myself. This kid his name's Josh Hayner. And he asked if he could intern for us. And we didn't really have any work. We said, okay, fine, come, you can get coffee and run errands and stuff. And so every summer for the next 3 years, he interned for us. Then he went to Stanford, graduated top of his class. It was like the valedictorian of his class. And he came back and he worked for us on one of our projects called America 24/7. We hired 1,000 photographers. We sent them all over the United States. It was a week-long project. And my daughter had just been born. Josh said, "Do you have a picture of your daughter?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He says, "Give me a picture of Femi." So I gave him a picture of Femi. I'm going to actually show you the picture. One second. So the next day he walks in my office and there's my daughter on the cover of the book, but it's got the reviews from the New York Times. It's got the logo of the book. And I said, "Wait, how did you do this?" He said, "I wrote the software. I found the vendors. We can deliver these to people for $5.65, including postage." And then Oprah Winfrey heard about it. And she held it up on her favorite things program, and 80,000 people tried uploading pictures of their dogs, their cats, their weddings, their parents' wedding from 40 years ago. It became this nationwide sensation. Josh went on to win the Pulitzer Prize in photography. When that bombing happened in Boston, during the marathon, he ended up photographing. He was assigned by the New York Times. He got hired by the New York Times because he met one of the editors working on our project, and we all fell in love with him. He's incredibly talented and just a wonderful human being. But I was driving across the Golden Gate Bridge one day, and he called. He said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Well, I'm in my car. Why?" And he said, "I got to tell you something." He said, "I just won the Pulitzer Prize in photography." So I felt like he wasn't my kid, but I felt like like one of my children had won the Pulitzer Prize. And this book became the #1 book in the United States because of Josh. I mean, the book was great, but the gimmick of it was the first time a New York Times best-selling book was mass customized by the audience, by the readers. So again, I'm always experimenting and playing with things. My wife says I overcomplicate things, which is true. It's sort of, featureitis. I keep adding and add. Like we did the book we did about the good fight, America's ongoing struggle for justice. We were supposed to include 20 videos in the book, where 20 pictures would trigger videos. We ended up putting 63 in the book because we couldn't help ourselves. It was just there were so many good videos to include. The videos were heartwarming and just really moving and fascinating and things you want something you want readers to say, "I've got to show this to my brother or my sister or my parents or my spouse," that it something that sort of, gets your emotions involved.